What is up, everybody? Up here. Welcome to Thomas and Friends Season 3 review. Since you guys watched Season 21 and it has a lot of views, I figure why not do a Season 3 review. The season that really changes everything. And not only that, this is the season that shines on me the most because of the most beautiful visuals, background, atmosphere, and music as well. So I'll be talking about some changes. This is the first season that changed the logo of Seasons 1 and 2 to Season 3 being Rockwell, and it will go up since Season 7 being the last season. The first season to have a music video with one being Thomas's anthem. After Ringo Starr left in Season 2, the first season we have a new narrator called Michael Angelis, and he will go up since Season 16, being the longest narrator in the UK. The first season to feature slow motion but will become epic in Season 8. The first season to have some episodes not to be based off by Wilbur Audrey or Christopher Audrey, with some episodes called Thomas Gets Bumped, Thomas, Percy and the Dragon, Diesel Does It Again, Henry's Forest, No Joke for James, Thomas, Percy and the Mail Train, Trust Thomas, Edward, Trevor and the Really Useful Party, All at Sea, One Good Turn, Heroes, Percy, James and the Fruitful Day, and Thomas and Percy's Christmas Adventure. The first season to be made by Glen Entertainment, and last but not least, this is the only season to use the B animation in one episode called James Goes Buzz Buzz, on which the only season to use cell animation. So without further ado, let's get started with some episodes. First episode, A Scarf for Percy. Percy wishes he could wear a scarf and really makes that wish happen by bumping Sir Topham-Hatt's luggage. This episode was a great one, and to start off, Percy wanted to get a scarf and he did. From what I remember from the Werewolf series, Henry the Green Engine, which had Percy in the trousers, which should not be in the book, being that the story was so short and too simple. So for this episode, I'll give it a 8 out of 10, a good episode. Next episode, Percy's Promise. Percy promises Thomas that he'll take the children in the Victor's Sunday school home, in spite of heavy rain and fully track. He keeps his promise with some help from Harold. This episode was a good one. It had a message of you have to keep your promises no matter what. So with that said, I give it a 9 out of 10. Great episode. Next episode, Time for Trouble. Gordon had been working hard too often and is sent to rest. So James pulled the express for him. However, his journey goes difficult when Toby runs out of water in the main line. This episode is not the weakest in my opinion. There's one thing that I don't like, and that is the single man being a stuck-up jerk in this one. But there is one thing that did save this episode from becoming a weak one, and that is when James says, "Ha ha!" in the UK of Angeles. That one makes me laugh so hard. So with that said, I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Gordon and a Famous Visitor. Gordon is jealous when a famous engine comes to visit Sodor, who happens to have no dome. So he tries to go faster than him and proves that domeless engines aren't respectable. I like this episode. It's a funny one, and Gordon got what he deserved in the ending as well. So with that said, I'll give it a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Donald's Duck. Duck is given his own branch line for working hard and becomes seated, which makes Donald tease him until Duck and his driver plays a joke on him. Once again, a good episode, and the title is a pun of Donald Duck from Disney. So with that said, 8 out of 10, good episode. Next episode, Thomas Gets Bumped. Thomas's branch line is closed due to the bent rails on the line. He begins to think that he has lost his passengers to Birdie. I love this episode, and to be honest, Thomas reminds me of how Sequoia and Bonnie were, even though they had to get their work done on time. So I'll give this one a 8 out of 10 for a good episode. Next episode, Thomas, Percy and the Dragon. Percy teases Thomas about being frightened all the time, but when Thomas is delivering a Chinese dragon in the night, the tables had turned. Another good episode, and I like how Mike and Jer come up with the Chinese dragon Asian music, and it works so well with it. So with that said, 8 out of 10 for a good episode. Next episode, Diesel Does It Again. Diesel is brought back to help Percy and Duck with the goods work at the harbor, but ends up causing more trouble. There's one problem that I don't like, and that is Sir Topham-Hatt should have bought Donald Douglas or even Toby to do it. But nope, he sent Diesel to do it, cause why not? And I like how Angela's delivery of Diesel's voice sounds so nerdy like this.
Your worthy fat, Sir Topham Hatt sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome trucks. Shunt where? Said Percy suspiciously. Where? Why, from here to there, purred Diesel, and again from there to here. Easy, isn't it?
That one made me laugh so hard. And I give it a 7 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Henry's Forest. Henry's favorite place on the island of Sodor is the forest. He's very sad when a storm damages the trees. Terrence and Trevor comes to rescue. I really do like this episode. It is very emotional of how Henry's favorite place got destroyed, and also, this is Woodward's least favorite episode of the show, and stating that there's Rule 55 stating that Henry's driver will stop for a while by the forest. And I can understand why they did that. So with the one problem out the way, 9 out of 10. Great episode. Next episode, The Trouble with Mud. Gower refused to get a wash down and winds up having to do the goods work instead of pulling the express. This episode should have worked better and this aired in the first season instead of this season, because after Off the Rails or Gordon Takes a Dip, we could see why Gordon has mud on himself and doesn't want to pull the express. But this one kind of feels like Britt and David did a good job on this. There are 5 things that I really do like, and that's how Gordon blew mud over on James, the leaves falling on the rails, the music, the background, and the visuals as well. So with that said, this is the first episode that I'll be giving it, and it's a 5 out of 10 for a meh episode. Yep guys, this is the first season to have its meh episode. This episode could have been in season 1 after Gordon Takes a Dip, then this will be a good episode, but it ain't. Next episode, No Joke for James. James plays a trick on Gordon, which gets him into trouble. He soon learns that engine does have to pull the coaches to be very useful. This was a good episode coming back at it, and I don't have too much to say than other. It's a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Thomas Percy in the mail train. Sometimes Thomas and Percy work right through the night pulling the post trains. Harold thinks he can make a better job of it, but Thomas and Percy proves their worth. Another good episode, and it has to do with the visuals. Like, wow, does the visuals really shine in this episode? Because it's worth the shot. Actually, it's worth the shot for me to give this one a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Trust Thomas. Brady learns that he could trust engines like Thomas, who remembers a missing tar tanker after having an accident with some trucks. This is a good one. It has a moral of you can trust someone that make you feel better, or helping out with your content as well, because sometimes people help your content as well, and yeah, that's just why. And this moral proves on why Thomas could be a trustworthy engine, just like me. In fact enough that this episode is trustworthy to give it a 8 out of 10. Good episode. And yes, in my opinion, the 2 stories work in this episode. Next episode, Mavis. A new quarry diesel engine named Mavis recognized things to her liking, making Toby cross. I like Mavis' character, even though she was a hot-headed character just like Natsuki was from the DLC. So I don't have too much to say, then other this episode will give it a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Toby's tightrope. Mavis makes a plan to go further down the quarry line with the help of some trucks, but she ends up putting Toby in danger. Another good episode. Mavis does feel bad when Toby's in danger, but she pulls him back on track. I'll give this one a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, Edward, Trevor, and a really useful party. Edward and Trevor help the vicar with his garden party to fund a seaside trip for the children, and when Bertie becomes stuck in the mud, Terrence comes to his rescue. I like this one. Has a good episode and a good character. Could get his own punishment by getting himself stuck in the mud, quote unquote. Fun fact, this episode was George Carlin's birthday when he heard this episode, and that was a nice one. So I'll give this one a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, James Goes Buzz Buzz. After James visits Trevor in the vicarage orchard, and Boko tells him to be careful with the bees. He thinks that he can easily scare them off, but it's proven wrong when an accident with its station sets a swarm of bees. This is a great episode. I like the bee animation, as well reminds me of Looney Tunes. I'm buzzing this one to give it a 8 out of 10. Great episode. Next episode, All at Sea. When the regatta comes, Duck wishes he could travel the sea, but he later learns that he's the happiest on the rails. Wow, what a sweet episode this is, and I love it. And it has a moral of a valuable of home, because not only that, people will go outside to visit new places or even travel around the world. But I'm not counting as big world, big adventures, but we'll get to it. And a lot of people will try new foods and meet new people as well, because we crave all the excitement, and so does Duck, and he craves the excitement too, you know? But there's one thing that turned the tables around, and it's Percy, the one thinking that the engines can go sailing, because engines can float. So that's the moral of itself. And the ending, gosh, it was so beautiful.
Duck still wonders about the lands beyond the horizon, but he enjoys being with friends most of all, and I think he knows that sometimes the best travels are those we can only dream about. Don't you?
Anyways, I'll give this one a 8 out of 10. Good episode. Next episode, one good turn. Bill and Ben end up in an argument with the turntable, so Edward and Boko make a plan to the twins' friends again. This episode is alright, but I do have one problem about this. First off, why can't Bill just not go into a turntable and let Ben go first? Cause if I was holding the door for somebody, then I would just let them come in. If it's a girl or a boy, then I will just hold it. But unlike that, this episode never works out, because this episode could have worked better if Bill had some good manners instead of having bad manners. So that's just my problem for this episode. So with that said, I'll give it a 5 out of 10 for a meh episode. Next episode, Tender Engines. When a new engine visits Sodor, Harry becomes jealous of his two tenders, so Duck plays a trick on him. This episode goes nowhere, cause when Mr. Topabat tells him that he'll never become obsoleted on his railway, we don't get a reason of why Henry gets jealous in the first place. So what's the point of him getting jealous at?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Yeah, cause Henry gets jealous of nothing. They should have made Henry get jealous of Gordon or Defiant Scotsman, aka Gordon's brother. But nope, they decide to throw it all away in the trash and make Henry get jealous of nothing. So I'm ready to give this one a 3 out of 10 for a bad episode. Doesn't mean I don't like this episode, doesn't mean I don't hate it. Yes, there's some positives about this one that I really do like. It has to do with the visuals, the music, the look at the new engine, and which will become a real character in a great race, but we'll get to that. But the only one thing that I really don't like is the story of itself, because it doesn't feel connected or jammed. It felt so distracted, so yeah, that's why I give this one a bad episode. Let's move on. Next episode, Escape. Douglas travels to a station where only diesels work. He meets an engine named Oliver and his brake van towed, escaping from the fate that all engines fears. Wow, this episode was great. Let's talk about the one thing that I really do like that gives me goosebumps is the music. The music was fantastic in this one. I know a lot of people will hear that Oliver's escape theme was Indiana Jones theme, so that's the one thing I really like for this one. So for this one, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. An absolutely best episode. Next episode, Oliver owns up. Oliver becomes consistent and thinks that he can manage trucks, but he's soon proven wrong. Another great follow-up episode from the previous one, and this one is great. Oliver is a bit cocky when he has that sagacity, but he's not when he ignores the engines. For this one, I'll give it a 8 out of 10 for a good episode. Next episode, Bulgy. A large name bus named Bulgy claims that railways should be closed, but after he steals Duck and Oliver's passengers, an accident pulls to end his lies. I like this episode, and Bulgy getting his own punishment after telling lies to the passengers was great. And all of that, 8 out of 10, good episode. Next episode, Heroes. Bill and Ben take advice from the troublesome trucks and causing a big muddle in the yard, but all is forgiven when they behave bravely at the clay pits. This episode was a good one. I like one good turn. This episode has a nice idea, but it works so well. And I like the part when they react to the rock slide in the clay pits after when they left the quarry just in time. So being a hero wants me to give this one a 8 out of 10 for a good episode. Next episode, Percy, James, and the Fruitful Day. James and Percy learns that bricks are not only thing that can be jammed. I like this episode again with the horror theme and the crash squirting fruit with Percy. This episode is a jam enough with a 8 out of 10 for a good episode. Last but not least, Thomas and Percy's Christmas Adventure. Thomas, Percy, Harold, and Terrence help some villagers after a snowstorm, and the engines get a holiday special surprise. For this one, I did stick watching this episode in the UK, but not for the US as well. Why, you may ask? Because the US version is literally called Thomas and Percy's Mountain Adventure, which is a Thanksgiving episode, but it has so many problems. I don't like the editing footage that could have edited the narration for examples like this.
Thomas, cheered the villagers. Percy, I've just remembered, your mail train is still back at the siding, isn't it? Percy hurried back to fetch it. Just then, Toby arrived with Henrietta. We've brought lots of hot drinks and food for the villagers, he whistled. That night, all the engines had gone back to the sheds except Toby. The villagers had made a plan to thank the engines. They loaded paint pots and parcels into Henrietta, and then they set off through the moonlit countryside.
The narration is fine, but with the US dub track leaving it behind, it just felt completely out of connected. So yeah, that's why I had to choose the UK narration instead of the US narration. And this episode will give it a 7 out of 10 for a good episode. And that is it for Thomas and Friends Season 3 review. Now, let's take a look at my pie charts. Now, Season 3 of my pie chart had 23 good episodes, 2 meh episodes, and 1 bad episode. Well, this is actually different from what I expected. Seasons 1 and 2 still had same 26 good episodes, no meh and bad episodes. But on the other hand, Season 3 had 2 meh and 1 bad. Here are my top 5 favorite episodes from Season 3. Let's get started. Number 5, James Goes Buzz Buzz. I like the B animation and how they used this one to make it look like Looney Tunes cartoon animation. Number 4, Heroes. I like how Bill and Ben's behavior when they escape the quarry just in time. Number 3, Percy's Promise. A moral of this episode is that you have to keep your promises no matter what. Number 2, Henry's Forest. A nice story and emotional ending of this episode. And number 1 is Escape. Mikey Jr. did a good job coming up with the music, and Oliver's escape theme is no exception. Let's talk about the music in this one, because Mikey Jr. did a good job composing this one. I like the soundtrack in this season, like Oliver's escape theme, City of Trower visits Sodor's theme, the Storm theme, Thomas's Danger theme for Trust Thomas, and most of all, that I really like is Henry's Forest theme. Mikey Jr. did a great job, so I'll give this music a 10 out of 10. And now, let's talk about the narration. So, let's start off with Michael Angelis. For me, I don't like his narration that much because when I was a little kid, I always watched Seasons 3 and 4 and listened to the US dub. But most of all, except for the UK dub. But as I got older, I do like Angelis' narration in this season. He does some great ones like James on top of Mag, Gordon, and even Diesel, which he sounded so nerdly. So Angelis for this season will give it a 6 out of 10. And as for George Carlin, his narration was great in this season. I like how he has some characters that he given some different voices like Donald and Douglas, Oliver, Baljees, Matt, and Gordon as well. So Carlin's narration for this one, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Let's talk about some notes about Season 3. So the first note is that some of the episodes had emotional endings. It does have for the 2 episodes called Henry's Forest and All at Sea, because those 2 episodes had a nice messages or morals that could relate to kids or adults as well. The second note is that the only one episode to feature a slow motion effect, and that is a scar for Percy. Now I do think it does a good job, but we'll have a slow motion crash effects in Season 8, but we'll get to that when we can. The third note is that the bee burns himself and stings James' nose is cell animation, a cartoon version. I know I talked about this one in the episode, James Goes Buzz Buzz, but that's the only season that they're going to use before they switch it to CGI. The fourth note is that all the episodes have beautiful visuals, atmosphere, and background. All the episodes do a good job, because if it wasn't for David Midden for doing that, then who knows, maybe we'll get a different director. But nope, it was David Midden who did that in the 5th season as well. And the 5th and final note is that it has the most deleted scenes. True, because if it weren't for the most deleted scenes of this season, then they won't make a music video of Thomas's anthem. So let me give my final thoughts about this season, cause the season has the most shine out to me, like it really does. Cause I like it. I already mentioned about the visuals, atmosphere, morals, music in the background as well, but most of the episodes do feel connected, except for 10 Directions, which it feels distracted. So I'm ready to give season 3 a 9 out of 10 for a great season. So I'm done reviewing season 3. Next up will be season 4. So thank you guys so much for watching this review video. If you like it, please leave a like, subscribe to my first and second channels, join my on my Discord server team with the Deku Squad, and follow me on Twitch. Peace out.